It's a message that's been cooking a while, so I'm looking forward to it. He told me about it before he'd ever preached a message. He gave me a little clue in, but he hasn't filled me in further than that, so I'm really anxious to kind of see how it filled out. But before we get to that, it was an incredible week. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, I was up at Speculator, up at Lake Pleasant at Camp of the Woods for a 3-day ministers retreat. And it was just so beautiful, so relaxing. The weather was perfect. The keynote speaker was Gordon MacDonald, one of my favorite authors. And Gordon is 82 years old now. And it was interesting. You know, typically, you know, when preachers are brought in for things, a lot of times you go and you hear them and it's kind of like a fire hose. I was just thinking about it. It was more like standing under a gently running waterfall of wisdom and truth, and it was just so awesome. It was so refreshing. And then, so I came home Wednesday. Friday, Marge and I went up to Buffalo for the Convoy of Hope Rural Compassion training as alumni and returnees to that training, and came home yesterday evening with another van load of stuff to use to bless our community. And so if you go out downstairs or come in from downstairs, along the south wall on tables is a bunch of the stuff that we got. If you get a chance, kind of take a look at it. See if some ideas come up in your mind of how we might be able to bless the community with it. And really the purpose of that stuff is to use it as a kind of foot in the door to build relationships with people in the community. That's the purpose of it. Hoping that this will kind of open or reopen the door with the school district down the road, since it's a new superintendent coming in middle of the month, so going to kind of have to start from scratch. So there's a number of things that I know are down there that will definitely be able to be passed on to them and help in that arena. But I know there's other ways and other people in the community that need help. Yes. Yeah, Dundee. They got a new superintendent. So, and that was, one thing where that's the challenge, post shutdown and all that, like ministering to these schools and these kids, and because the kids are still in need. There's still a need there, and it's a way to impact them for the kingdom. So build those relationships. At the retreat, I saw Leslie Latona. She was there, and she wanted me to especially make sure that I told all of you how much she loves you, how much she enjoyed her time here with us when she came here to Itinerate, we being her first church. Since then, she's put on about 9,000 miles going from church to church every different Sunday in her itineration, and she is just having a wonderful time. And she was so verbal about how dear we are to her. So I just wanted to share that. Today is Mission Sunday. So I don't have an update to share with you other than Leslie Latona says she loves us and she's praying for us. And I met another missionary. It's kind of an interesting story, Tim and Debbie Anderson. They are missionaries to Ecuador. They have been there for 35 years. If you've ever read the book Gates of Splendor, that's where they do the whole head shrinking. That's the crazy place. That's where they've been ministering for 35 years. So I ended up sitting at the table eating with them several times over the course of the retreat. And through that, found out that a local woman that babysat me when I was about yay high and her husband are dear friends of theirs. And so we got to really connect, and he finally at the last meal said, so would it be okay? Do you think you would have a time when we could come to your church and share? And yeah, we can do that, but I got to tell you what you're getting yourself into. I said, when you come, you got to be prepared. The whole service is yours. We don't want the highlights and just the happy stories. We want it all. And we do faith pledges, and when we have a missionary, we adopt them. And we're going to have a meal afterwards, and we really want to get to know you as much as we can in like a 4-hour stretch. And he just started welling up with tears. Like that a church would be that invested in their missionaries. And it was just incredible. So I think he's out in May. So we'll be looking forward to him in May. So they're going back to Ecuador in the middle of the month, and then he'll be back in May. So men's breakfast coming up on the 16th of October. Ended up the scheduling conflict was resolved, and we are going to have it on the third Saturday here, 8 o'clock. So put it in your calendar, and be a wonderful, wonderful time. So other than that, any other announcements that I need to share about? I'm sure there's going to be stories coming from the ladies' retreat, but we'll let those kind of, stir a little bit. I want to hear from you ladies about the retreat eventually. So be thinking about it and let me know when you're ready. So, all right. Well, without any further ado, Zeke.
All right. Good morning, guys. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm ready to go. Are you guys? All right, let's do this. I'm going to pray real quick and we'll get started. Thank you, Father, so much for Sundays, God. Thank you for this church. Thank you for time just to sit and to be with you and to just dwell in your presence, God. Thank you for the worship team that just did such an awesome job this morning. God, I just pray that our hearts and our minds would be open to you, open to what you have to say, God, that we would look honestly at our lives and be willing to make changes that we need to make. God, I pray that ultimately what would come from this time would be a fresh perspective and changed lives, God. I pray that I would speak nothing that isn't from you, God, and God, that you would use me to convey your truths to these people this morning. We know you're here. We love you. Amen. So, today I'm going to talk about plans with you guys. And I'm going to share a little bit about my life first because that word means different things to different people. And so just to give you a little more perspective, and also for the live stream, my name is Ezekiel. I guess that's it. And I preach here sometimes, I guess. But just to give you all a little more perspective into my life, Jared, you want to throw that first picture up? I work in construction. I work with an awesome team. We have a company in Penyan, and this is them, at least some of them. And a great group of people there. I mean, honestly, some of my best friends are in that picture. And we really hit it off together. We have a lot of fun. We get a lot of work done. Show the next one there, Jared. So kind of my part of the team, my role is I work in the office. So this is my desk. This is where I spend a lot of time going over plans, doing quotes, presenting numbers to customers. And it's really what I like to do, but also growing a business from that desk and having a lot of fun with that. And my role in the team is to establish a scope for the work. So to come up with a plan of exactly what needs to be done to get the end result that the customer's looking for. So I'll go and I'll meet with them, and a lot of times they'll give me a set of blueprints, which Jared can throw up on the screen as well. And this is kind of just a sample of what some blueprints might look like. I know you can't really see the details from there, but it outlines exactly how a wall needs to be built, or how much insulation goes into the house, or where the doors are located and how many lights they're going to have. Details down to, every doorknob, every switch, it all has to be accounted for. And so when I meet with these customers, there's just a lot of talk that goes into exactly what they're going to get and exactly what they want. So us trying to have that same expectation level. So a crystal clear set of plans is absolutely pivotal. So when I talk about plans or when I hear about plans, this is kind of the first thing that comes to mind because it's such a big part of my life. So a lot of my work comes after meeting with a customer. I come back to the office and I sit down with a set of plans like this and measure every bit of siding, every bit of roofing. You just go down the list and you try to come up with that exact number, that exact price that's going to get you to that result that the customer's looking for. And that's an important step, because if you misjudge the scope or if you misjudge the customer's expectations, you get to the end and the price isn't enough. Or on the other hand, you don't want to shoot so far past and shoot so far beyond that either you don't get the job because your price is quoted so high, or you end up gouging people because you accidentally just thought it was going to be way too much. So coming up with a good plan, that's what we're talking about today, and what our plans are in our lives. So that's good for that image there, Jared. But we all have plans, and we all set goals for ourselves and have a perception of what we think the future is going to be, and we live accordingly. And we have plans for, even just like our year. Maybe this is the year that you're going to start that new job or get a vehicle that you've always wanted. Or maybe it's the year that you're starting a new grade in school. So listen up, kids. This sermon is for you as well. Maybe it's a new grade. Maybe it's a new set of friends or something like that. Or maybe it's even just, these are goals that we have, plans that we have for our life too. I want to become a doctor or a lawyer, or maybe I want to have kids, or maybe I want to build my own house someday, or maybe I want to live in town or live in the country or whatever. We have plans for our lives that we set in motion and we work towards, and even just plans for our week. What day I'm going to do laundry, or what day I'm going to buy groceries, or what evening I'm going to spend with friends, or what day my friends are going to come over. So lots of plans. Maybe even it's just dinner plans. Where we kind of have an idea of what we're going to eat today. Maybe today your food's in a crock pot. And that is the title of my sermon today. And Jared's got a slide with that. Is your crock pot on? That's the title of my sermon. And we're going to get into more detail of what that means later. But the idea behind the crock pot is a plan in motion, okay? We've got a plan for dinner. We've got a plan for lunch. We've prepared it. We've invested in it. And it's sitting at home waiting for us. And I'm going to be there when it's ready, okay? There's a plan. So when I say that crock pot, I got one here you can look at if you forget what a crock pot looks like, but think about that as a plan in motion. So to start off, I want to talk a little bit about our will for our lives. We all have a will for our life. We all want to be successful. And plans are good. They get you somewhere. So in order to be successful, you do need a plan. You talk to anybody who's made any amount of money at any time in history, and they had a plan to get there. They didn't just stumble upon it. I guess a few people win the lottery, but I'm not talking about them. They're more an exception to the rule. But we all have a set of steps that we're planning on taking in order to get to a desired outcome. I had a desired outcome years ago. It was the year, 7 years ago, whenever that was. And I was just out of high school. I was, looking for something to do. I was waiting to prove myself to the world, like a lot of young guys are that are just coming out of high school. And I had a plan to go to Hawaii with my brother Nevin, who actually his wife just had a baby 2 days ago. Felix. Congratulations, Nevin, if you're watching this. But I had a plan to go out with Nevin, and we were just going to tear it up in Hawaii, surf and climb coconut trees. And I didn't really know. I was just going to get a flight and go out there and see what happened. Probably get a job somewhere at some point or sleep on the beach. I didn't know. So I had this plan that I was going to go. And Nevin and I have always talked a lot in the past and kind of been there for each other, so we thought it'd be cool to live together for a while. And I also had another plan with another one of my brothers that summer. Alex needed a new roof on his house, and I was going to go out and help Alex put a roof on his house. And I was still kind of in the planning phases of all this, but my plan originally was at some point in the summer, I was going to go help Alex, probably fly out there, help him with his roof, live with him for a week, however long it took, whatever. And then from there, I was going to fly to Hawaii, one-way ticket, come back whenever I felt like it. And that was my plan. That's what I had set in motion. But something ruined my plan, and that was a torn ACL. So me and my cousin were fooling around in the yard. We were playing some youth event game, and I was blindfolded, and so was he. And, you know, just being teenage boys, I shoved him, he shoved me. I shoved him harder, and he rolled back onto my right leg, and kind of my knee went that way, and I went that way. Dislocated my knee and tore my ACL, partial tear of my meniscus, and completely derailed my plans. But something really wonderful came out of that. And that was about a month or so after that happened, Denise and I started dating, and the rest is history there. So I don't regret any of that. But needless to say, my plans were ruined straight out of high school. Do we have any kids here who are in high school? I think you three are, right? Jasmine's in high school. Elijah thinks he's in high school, I guess. But you guys, listen, I'm preaching specifically to you this morning, okay, and everyone else, but listen up, because you're forming a plan for your life. And people ask you this all the time, I'm sure. What are you going to do? What do you want to be when you grow up? Where are you going to live? What's your family going to be like, right? And I'm here to tell you that probably whatever you choose at this point is not going to stay the same. Really quick, let's do a show of hands. Who is currently, for an occupation, not doing what they thought they would be doing in high school? Who is not doing what they thought they would be doing in high school? Okay, most of us, all right? So most of our plans get derailed. Most of our plans get off track, and that's okay. But that's just because plans change. You know, things come along. There is stuff we didn't expect that just happens. Life happens, as they say. But more than that, plans fail. Plans fail. We have an idea that we can achieve something. We have a goal that we think we can meet. And maybe we don't measure up. Maybe we're not able to make it happen. Maybe things just went wrong. And so I would say, if there's any way, if you've ever planned something in your life, whether it's a vacation, whether it's a career, whether it's dinner, if you've ever planned something in your life, I think it's pretty safe to say that you've been through your set of failed plans. And so the bottom line that I want to get to you this morning, and Jared's got a slide for it, is that your plans stink. And it's true. Your plan stinks. And that's okay, all right? Because we're gonna come back around to that. But we have so many goals. We have so many intentions for the future, okay? And so many times they just come up short, or we come up short. Something unexpected happens. But you know what happens? I find for me, when my plan stinks, which is often, is that I come up with another plan immediately. So this plan failed. Guess what? I know how I'm going to fix this failed plan is with a new plan. And there we go, headlong down that next direction where this plan, it's going to be all, man. I'm finally going to hit that end goal that I've been looking for so long. I'll come up with a new plan. And what's interesting is with that new plan, some people plan for success and some people plan for failure. Some people say, because I failed, I'm going to fail again. So I better make a plan that accounts for that. And so they don't try, they don't invest, they don't bet on themselves because they think they're going to fail. Maybe they're in a spot in their life where there's been recurring events where it seems like they can't get ahead. The bills are too high. The kids need too much, whatever. The car just broke down. and it just seems like you can't get anywhere. And I've met people who've been in this cycle for years and years and years and years, where they just feel like they fail and they fail and they fail and they fail. So they project that on their future. Their future plan is failure. Well, some people, I would say the more dominant personalities, their solution to a bad decision is another decision. Or a solution to a bad plan is another plan. And so they believe in themselves to the end and will continue to make plans and continue to dig themselves out of holes and continue to soldier on. So there are those two people, and I think to both of those people, there's a very important message. And I think it's probably safe to say that a lot of us would lean more on the side of we're a little more hopeful for our future, I would say. That we tend to think that we can get somewhere, whether it's not as might not be as fast as we want to get there, or it might not be in the same way, but we think that we can do better. I'll try harder. I'll get myself out of this. I'll lose weight. I'll whatever. And so when you come up with that new plan, when your last plan failed and you're starting your new plan, there's two problems with our plans. There's two problems with our goals. And the first one, and Jared's going to throw that up on the screen. Number one is you can't possibly predict what is going to hinder your plan in the future. You can't predict what is going to hinder your plan. There are things that are going to happen further down the road. I'll give you a perfect example. Take you back to my world, into construction, and something that happened to all of us, I guess, would be in 2020 when they started imposing restrictions on how businesses were going to run and how they're going to operate. And this was all new to all of us, to have to wear a mask when you go into a store, or only a certain amount of people on a crew. What they did to us was they said for a time period there, only one person was allowed on a job site at a time, which is incredibly difficult for us because we have just how our company is built, how we're set up is we have foremen who are in place, and then they have 2 or 3 guys with them who are learning the trade, who are there to help. And those guys, it's hard for them to sometimes manage themselves on a job site for an hour, let alone an entire day by themselves. And so it's just created this entire headache of this guy here and that, and trying to, calling up customers and saying, hey, your job is simple enough that, we can put someone like this on it, and can we start it 3 months sooner than we thought we were going to get to it, or whatever. And we just opened up all these different jobs, and we're putting guys here or there. That was a problem we could have never predicted. Or even just how the industry is for me every day, where, I sit down and I try to get that quote just right, but especially in remodeling, and I'm sure you all know this, when you start tearing out walls and realize there's rotted studs, or pull up a floor and it's moldy, or tear off the first layer of shingle and then the next layer of shingle and then the next layer of shingle and then the next layer of shingle, right? It seems like there's a lot of unexpected stuff involved with building and with remodeling. And whether, I know there's a lot of people in this room who have been on kind of my side of that, where you had a plan, you thought it was going to be a certain way, and you're charging a customer to do work, and then you go in there and it's not what you thought it was going to be. Or maybe you're on the other side of that and you're paying someone to do something, and they come to you and say, hey, we ran into some stuff. You can't really foresee what all is going to happen. I mean, there's tragedy, changing market, or maybe it's a crumbling relationship. But what's more is you think you know what will satisfy you. You think you know where this plan is going to get you and how it's going to make you feel. But do you really? So maybe your plan, maybe your goal is if you could just date that one person, if you could marry them, if you could be in a relationship with them, man, that's life right there. What happens when you get to the end of that? What happens when you are in that relationship? Where do you go from there? Or maybe your goal is that career, and you went to college and you invested your time and you wanted to make a difference in that way for the rest of your life, but here you are in that same job for the past 10 years, and it's kind of drying out on you a little bit. We think we know what's best for us. We think we have an idea of what we want, and we set a plan to get there. So even if your plan does work, can you really predict what type of person you're going to be, what type of needs you're going to have when you get to the end of that? What if you wake up one day and you have the house you've always wanted, you have a car you love to drive, you have a bunch of wonderful kids, and it's just kind of the next day and the next day and the next day. And start to wonder why you wanted all this so bad, why it was so crucial to put it at the center of your life. On a lighter note, what if you get home and the onions didn't caramelize like you thought they were going to in the crock pot, or the flavors didn't quite go together? That happens too. Remember high school? How'd that plan go? There's the second reason, though. There's a second problem with your plan. And Jared's got a slide for that one, too. You are the largest variable in your plan. You are the greatest unknown in your plan. See, you can come up with a great plan to go on a diet and start exercising in order to lose some weight, but when it comes time to wake up at 6 a.m. or whatever, when it comes time to actually get on there, are you going to be able to do it? Maybe you have an opportunity to work for a fast-paced growing company with a lot of expectations, and you get in there and you start moving around. It's too stressful for you. You got to get out. You can't do that. It's tearing you apart. What if you can't even really be the hero of your own story? You are the largest variable in your plan. Everyone say that with me. Say, I am the variable. You are the variable. You can have a perfect plan, but it comes to ruin because you don't have the proper education or the proper training or experience, or maybe you just don't have the drive or the motivation that you thought you would. Maybe you have something come along that's a health concern that ruins your plan. Maybe you get a torn ACL like I did. Can you really be dedicated long enough to get yourself to that place that you're hoping to get yourself to? See, we come up with these plans and we invest our lives in them. And what happens is we get a little tied to them. You got a lot riding on this plan. I mean, if we're talking about more than just dinner plans, or more than just, which car you're going to buy next, or more than just, which elective class you're going to take in high school, maybe it's a bigger plan, like what you're going to do with your future and your career and who you're going to invest your life in. If you set a plan and you set a course for that, you got a lot riding on it. It has to work. So I brought a little analogy with me today to hopefully help you guys understand a little bit of what I'm saying. So I have this crock pot here, which I kind of came upon this. Pastor said it's a sermon that's been cooking for a while. He said it like 4 times. But I appreciate the pun. I'm not one of those people that hates humor or whatever. So, come on, what's so wrong with a pun, okay? It's funny. Don't roll your eyes so much. So I have this crock pot here because that's what I think about sometimes on a Sunday morning. I think about what's for lunch. I really do. I'm standing in here and I think about what's for lunch. And especially when I lived at home, and this was a primary way that my mom would make Sunday lunch was a crock pot. And I would think about it, okay? And what kind of got me to that was, am I sacrificing what God might want to do here because I got a freaking crock pot at home on? I mean, come on, how pathetic is that, right? Anyways, imagine this crock pot is your plan, okay? So it's a plan for dinner, but let's imagine it anywhere. Your plan for your life, your plan for your career, your plan for your time, whatever. And you have this idea, this projection, and you're going to make it happen. But in order to do that, you need to invest. Now, my mom would invest some potatoes and some roast beef and some carrots and onions or whatever, and pour some gravy in there, some sauce, and maybe a little bit of water, whatever. And that's what she would invest into that lunch, into that meal. But when we have a plan for our future, we invest other things. We invest things like money. We put a lot of money into our plans, right? And we invest time. A lot of time goes into making our plans work. A lot of time goes into reaching our goals, our dreams, or even just our hobbies or our passions. But what's more than those two is we put our hearts into it. We put our hearts into these plans. This guy's not in great shape. His heart is purple. But anyway, put our hearts into these plans, okay? And so we put that in there, right? We get that plan going. All right, maybe this is, I don't know what this is for you. Maybe this is your 401k. Maybe this is your, your mortgage. Maybe this, I don't know what this is. This is, you just put this in your own life, okay? What are you going for right now? What are you pulling for, okay? And we put all these things in place, and we invest so much into this, and then we go to serve God, right? But where's our minds? At the crockpot at home, right? Because we've invested so much into that. We've put so much of our life, our time, our money into this. It means a lot to us. It means a lot to us. We're going to come back to this in a second. But I believe that we are here for a purpose. I believe that we're more than just evolved creatures. I believe that we were created, and that Creator cares about his creation, and that he wants what's best for us. I believe that because of what I see around me, the detail of the natural world, that there's a God who cared about our environment, that we could survive, that we could sustain ourselves, that life could be good for us. I believe in a God because of the conviction I feel in my heart that I know right and I know wrong, and I know that I ought to be right. I believe that he cares about me so much that he wants me to follow his plan for my life. He wants me to take up the cross with him and follow in his footsteps, to do what he did when he was here on this earth. I believe that he came to earth thousands of years ago and touched humankind in a way that we've never been touched before, that he sacrificed his own son to die for us so that he could have connection with us, so that he could really care for us and bring us into his flock and bring us into his house and into his family and care for us. See, as our Creator, as the God who thought us up out of nothing to be in relationship with him, he knows what's best for us. He knows your desires. And I love putting God into the situation of these two, the number one and number two. Jared, if you want to put those two up together. The number one and number two problem with our plan. And I love being able to bring God into that and allowing him to fix these problems for me. See, if I'm working in God's will, if I'm going towards God's plan for my life, he can predict the future. He does know what's going to come against me. He does know what I'm going to face. But what he knows, I don't know. And so I have to trust in him. And I have to allow him to show me what the next step is. You see, I wasn't joking when I said your plan stinks. Because compared to his, it really does. You're not getting anywhere with trying to predict your own future. See, what I think we forget is that God cares about us more than we care about us. He knows you more than you know you. So if we have that problem of getting to the end of this long drawn out plan this long life of working towards something, this long life of investing in something, and maybe it feels shallow, maybe it feels empty. You don't get that with God. See, because he understands that serving and loving and caring about others and leaving a trail of beautiful relationships and people that you cared for and that you looked after, that's far more rewarding. That's far more worth your time and your money and your investments. It's worth all of you. It's worth your whole life. But what I love even more about it is that number 2, that you are the largest variable in your plan. With God, you can't mess up his plan. You can't mess up God's plan. He's already taken into account the level of intentionality, the level of dedication, the level of skill, of experience that you bring. He knows who you are. See, he knows every cell, every fiber. He knows every thought that goes through your head, every desire in your heart. He knows it. And he set a course for you. And he says, this is the most fulfilling course. To give you kind of an analogy on that, I raised sheep when I was younger. It was kind of my little way of making a little extra money. And we didn't have a lot of sheep, maybe like 10 or 15 at a time. And sheep are pretty easy to figure out. I mean, they got their trails they walk on in the pasture. They, got the different types of food they like to eat and what they don't eat. They're pretty easy to figure out. So let's say I was to run into that sheep pen, right, with my arms waving and all that. I knew that if I did that, the sheep would scatter. Did they have to? Did I tell them they ought to scatter? No, but I knew they would. And so I feel like in that same way that I knew the sheep, I knew their reaction, God knows yours. But to such a deeper level. I mean, just think about it. It's something like we lose our body weight in cells every year or something crazy like that, or 7 years, or what is it, Dave? Okay. It's a lot, okay? His knowledge of the universe is so vast that he knows every element, every bit of food, every bit of water, whatever, that's going to make up you from the time he created the world to the time it ends. He knows every little last bit of you, and he knows what's best for you. The good that you have stored up for yourself doesn't even come close to comparing to the good that God has stored up for you. The meal that you're preparing for yourself, the road that you're on, isn't going to get you anywhere near the type of fulfillment, the type of satisfaction, and the type of change in the world that you're hoping for that God could do for you. I want to show you a couple scriptures to back this up. James chapter 4. There's a longer passage up there, but I'm just going to read this shorter one. Verses 14 to 15 say, how do you know what your life will be like tomorrow? Your life is like the morning fog. It's here a little while, then it's gone. What you ought to say is, if the Lord wants us to, we will live and do this or that. It's living your life with an open hand. Saying, God, I'm going a certain direction. I have a certain amount that is considered in my name, I guess. But I hold it with an open hand. If you want to take it, you take it. I want to go through Colossians with you as well. Colossians 3, 1 to 4. Colossians 3, 1 to 4. And I'm reading out of the NLT this morning. It says, since you have been raised to new life with Christ. That's you guys. That's the church. Since you've been raised to new life with Christ, set your sights on the realities of heaven. See, when we became a Christian, when we said, God, I lay my life down, do we really lay our life down? Do we really invest completely in his plan, in his goal for our life? Or do we have a lot of crockpots going here and there? Things that we're invested in, things that we haven't given up, things that we're planning for our own future. Since you have been raised to new life with Christ, set your sights on the realities of heaven. The realities of heaven. Heaven's going to happen. Where Christ sits in the place of honor at God's right hand. Think about the things of heaven, not the things of earth. Where's your mind Sunday morning? Is it on your crockpot or is it on God? Set your mind on the things of heaven, not the things of earth. For you died to this life, and your real life is hidden in Christ. Two things there. You died to this life. So when you became a Christian, you said, God, I understand that I'm a sinner. I understand that I don't have what it takes. And I want to give my life to you. I want to live my life in a way that pleases you. You died to yourself. You let your dinner burn in the crock pot. You threw them away. You said, God, I give everything to you. You can do with it what you want. And your real life is hidden with Christ. Guys, it's hidden. It's hidden. I know for me it's not obvious. But it's safe there with him. There's so many things that, like I said, derail our plans and mess things up for us. But in a life with Christ, your life is hidden with God. Verse 4, and when Christ who is your life, is revealed to the whole world, you will share in all his glory. So if you commit your plan to him, if you commit your life to him, you're going to share in a spectacular, glorious return when he does come back. And I'm not preaching against crockpots today, okay? I love chili and roast beef just as much as the next guy, okay? But do you see the difference? Do you see the difference in walking around like you've got to get places, like you've got to get packed to something, like you got to keep things going, and just saying like, you know what, God, I'm going to church. I'm making some food in the crock pot because I got kids to feed. But if we get there and worship is going longer than usual, if after the sermon we need to pray for some people, or the preacher talks longer than what I thought he was gonna, I'm okay with that. It can get a little more cooked than it needs to. I would rather eat dry roast beef than miss time with you. I'd rather let my plans fall away than miss having a part in your plan. My mom did a really good job of this. She, like I said, would make a crock pot a lot, but she turned it into her ministry. She fed a lot of people at our house. A lot of people who maybe no one else would be their friend, or maybe they were new to church. A lot of people when they were new to church, I remember my parents would invite them home and they'd meet us and we'd talk and they'd stay for hours. My mom would feed them whatever she had prepared. Or kids who didn't have homes and their parents were having troubles, they'd come stay at our house. My mom would feed them. She made it her ministry. And you all have a ministry of your own, right where you are, ready to go, ready to make it God's plan and not your plan. See, I want to get myself in the mindset where I drive my truck to work every morning and say, God, I've got a job, I've got friends, I've got a vehicle, I've got a house. How can you use that today? How can you make that a piece in your kingdom, a piece in your plan? What can I do to be active in the kingdom today with what you've given me? So I want each of you to think on that this afternoon. What are you doing right now that could be God's plan? What are you doing right now that could be turned, could be flipped just slightly to become a ministry to your community? Because I do believe that Jesus is coming back someday. I do believe that there is going to be a reckoning. And I want as many people in heaven with me as possible. That's worth living your life for. So many people in history died for their faith. Were executed because they wouldn't recant Jesus. They were killed because of their faith in him, because of what they believed. That's not being asked of you today. Something else is. And I don't say this lightly because I can't imagine what it would be like to be executed for my faith. But I think in some ways what we've been asked is just as hard. To live your life for Jesus. To wake up every single moment and go through that. I give it all back to you, God. My very life, I give it back to you. Not by dying, but by living. So what is God's plan? What does he want from you? Because that's what I want to know. God, what do you want? What do you want from me today? I'm sick of doing the same old thing. I'm sick of my plans failing. My plan stinks, God. I want yours. What is God's plan? It's pretty simple. It's pretty simple. It's to love him with all your heart. And it's to love your friends and your neighbors like you love yourself. That's his plan for you. That's at the center. Now, how that looks for you specifically, that's different for each person. But bottom line is, he's looking for a relationship with you. And he's looking for you to lead other people into that relationship with him. It's like we heard a week or two ago. It's to offer your body as a living sacrifice. To be used for his kingdom. And so I guess to close, worship team, you can come up. My Uncle Melvin, you guys met him. I think it's Uncle Melvin who said this. If it doesn't take long to get old. What's it say? What's he say? It doesn't take long to get old, but once you're old, it takes a long time. Yeah, it doesn't take long to get old. And when you get to end of your life, I think you're going to have wanted every minute invested in the kingdom. I think you're going to want to have taken every opportunity you could to serve God, to live for something that's meaningful for once, to maybe for the first time in your life not get to the end of a plan and be disappointed and be let down. So think about that this week. Think about if your crockpot is on. Think about what you're invested in. And see what happens when you give it back to God. See what happens when he takes over. Go ahead, John.
Darkness fills the night, it cannot hide the light. Whom shall I fear? You crush the enemy underneath my feet. You are my sword and shield, though troubles linger still. Whom shall I fear? is always by my side. The one who reigns forever. He is a friend of mine. The God of angel armies is always by my side. My strength is in your name, for you alone can save. You will deliver me. Yours is the victory. Whom shall I fear? Whom shall I fear? I know who goes before me. I know who stands behind. The God of angel armies is always by my side. The one who reigns forever. He is a friend of mine. The God of angel armies is always by my side. And nothing formed against me shall stand. You hold the whole world in your hands. I'm holding on to your promises. You are faithful. You are faithful. And nothing formed against me shall stand. You hold the whole world in your hands. I'm holding on to your promises. You are faithful. You are faithful. You are faithful. I know who goes before me. I know who stands behind. The God of angel armies is always by my side. The one who reigns forever. He is a friend of mine. The God of angel armies is always by my side. I know who goes before me. I know who stands behind. The God of angel armies is always by my side. The one who reigns forever. He is a friend of mine. The God of angel armies is always by my side. The God of angel armies is always by my side.
Thank you, Lord. He never leaves us. He never forsakes us. He holds the whole world in his hands, and our plans are safe there too. All right, all of it's safe in his hands. And I'm thankful Zeke kind of set me up for the prayer after the sermon part. He didn't know that was coming, but so number of awesome things have happened in this last week as well. Gail came home. She is living there with Dawn. She is recovering well. Oliver is talking. He's talking. This is a miracle. This is answered prayers. These are huge things. But there's also other people that are facing things. Doug asked, he's got some tests he's facing, and he asked for prayer. So, one part of God's plan for our lives that I think we overlook it as a part of his plan is that prayer piece. Because here's a reality that we often miss. It's that when we avail ourselves to him in our prayers to him and say, God, we want to pray in line with your will. we are cooperating with heaven and setting things into motion in the spiritual realm for God's hand to move. That's part of God's plan for each and every one of your lives, that you would engage in his plan for this world through prayer, through agreement. So before we dismiss, let's agree together, first and foremost, to give God glory and praise for the miracles and the continued healing in those cases. For, Danita's still got her journey ahead of her. She's still on that road. We got Doug. We got so many people, so many things. So why don't we pray together, agree together, and then I'll send you out with blessing. Father, I just thank you, God, that you answer prayers, God. You have been moving mightily in our world, God, with your healing hand, God. You've moved through doctors and medical science, and that is no less a miracle, God. I don't even comprehend. I don't understand. It baffles my mind that you have placed into our ability as human beings, as a medical professional, to be able to actually do surgery in a brain and improve things. That is just, I don't get it, God. But that potential you have placed into those people, into those surgeons. You are the one who steadies their hands as they do that work. You are the ones that have given them the intelligence to do what they do. So, God, we give you the glory for that. We give you that glory because you are our healer. And God, I just want to continue, and we all want to continue to pray and lift up Gail as she continues to recover from her surgery, Father. Oliver, God, the little boy's talking. I pray that he would continue to talk, that he would continue to have not just a maintaining, but he would progress greater and greater, and he would grow and be able to have a full life, God. God, I lift up Doug to you, God, and we just agree together for Doug that, God, we want to see your hand at work in his life, God. We ask that your healing vitality would be poured upon him. Let a healing virtue be poured out upon him, God. Father, whatever those tests might be and whatever it is he's facing in the medical realm here, God, I just pray, Father, that you would give him the peace that passes understanding, that his reality would become your presence in his life, and the peace would just surround him and carry him. Father, as Danita continues in her journey, Father, that, God, you would give her peace and assurance that, God, no matter what it might look like now or what it could look like in the future, God, that you're holding her in your hands. And there's no safer place to be. And Father, I just want to pronounce over everyone here this morning a blessing, God. God, that they would go forth knowing that your favor is upon them. So may the Lord bless you. May he grant you favor. May he grant you peace. May his face shine upon you. May you know that his presence is with you in every moment of every day. May his kingdom become a reality in your life. And may you see his hand at work in every detail. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, I bless these people. Everyone here, God. Bless them all. Thank you, God. Amen. You are dismissed. What's that? Yeah.
Come to the life, come to the living water, never runs dry. You can trust the Father, He is good, and He satisfies. Come to the light, leave the empty shadow, trade the night. You can trust the Father, He is good, and He satisfies. Send His Son, Jesus, and we are made alive.